Filipino heritage, but born and raised in Hawaii of Filipino parents, having started with our Filipino arnis because of the situations that we grew up on in the sort of, it was something quite beautiful in those post-war days leading up to the 50s, etc. And I got involved even from the time we were in school doing judo from about 1951, and right into 1956 was when I got into the Kempo. One of the returned soldiers from the army that had engaged in the campaign in Korea became one of our neighbors, and he was one of the guys that got me started in Kempo. That was in 56. Then from the island of Kauai, as I grew up on that island, the sugar and pineapple plantations, etc., I shifted to Honolulu, the actual capital island. I got then connected up with having to do Goju Kai. Prior to that, even for 3 months, I had gotten into the Kyokushinkai under Shihan Babilo and Manny de la Cruz, who was one of his right-hand men, which was my Kempo instructor in Honolulu as well. But it was through Oshiro Sensei, who was one of the very pioneers of Goju Kai, having to get it started in Hawaii, that I locked into. And it was such an exciting thing, because it was, even during my career being a Marine then, starting from 1959, that it was the Goju Kai that I really got to embrace, and certainly took every bit of challenge that I could learning from it while still actively in the Marines. I visited Australia with the Marines from the group that I was involved in 1962. That was in June of 1962. In that, it was such an experience as well, that I had discovered Australia like as a new frontier, as I mentioned, something of interest that there was hardly karate, especially in Victoria, that I went to, that existed. In Sydney there was, and there was with Sensei Merv Oakley. I put it as a mission. I use it in a finishing wording of I share because I care, and I dare to take on the challenges of what I do better now than what I did of past.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, great. And Kancho, can you tell us a bit about your background before meeting Hanchi?
Before, it was about January 1964. I was a police cadet in New South Wales in Sydney. I think I was maybe green belt at the time, but Merv had said that there was an American guy who was coming to Australia to teach karate in Victoria. He was from Hawaii, and I mentioned his name. And so a guy called John Morris and myself volunteered, as Merv had requested, somebody to go down and be involved with Tino in setting up his Hanchi Tino and setting up his the club, just helping. So we went down in John Morrison's Volkswagen Beetle, drove down to Melbourne, met Tino and his wife Cherie at the time, and the young kids. I remember we did a demonstration at Monash University, which is new. But Tino and I made for whatever reason, connection, friendship, and as crazy as it sounds, Tino, I kept in such constant contact with Tino. I don't know if you remember, Tino, I would call you, I would say probably 5 times a week. We'd talk for an hour, a couple of hours. It was amazing he gave all that time, and he was my senior. I was, we've both been in karate a long time now, but Tino was my senior, and I still see him that way. So he was a mentor. Where Merv Oakley, who to be honest with you, I come to not respect, sadly, over the years, but was my, teacher in Sydney. Between 67, early 67 when I met Tino, and about 69 or so, I had many visits down to Tino, and Tino come up to Sydney a few times, and with another guy who came over, Sal Ebenez, who was with Tino, eventually started his own club in Albury, but just a funny story I've got to tell you while it's on the line. I ended up joining with a guy called Tony Chu, who's a really fantastic. He was under the Karate Association of Malaysia, Budokan, and I, along with a lot of other ex-Goju Kai people, went over to Tony, and we made a fantastic connection. And Tony and I took Tony out to Broken Hill with me once in my little mini miner, and we met some people out there who had known karate students who I'd made a connection with, and we went goat shooting. And we killed some goats, and we got a goat. We had in the back of our mini, and I remember landing. Tony and I landed in Melbourne, drove to Melbourne with this goat, half a goat or a whole goat, and we sort of threw it in Tino's laundry or bathtub and said to ask his wife to go out and clean it for us. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well,
Oh, that was crazy. But there were some good days there, and when
that
I
was a fantastic eating goat, by the way.
what's that?
Yeah, we did a good roast out of that.
Did we?
Yeah.
And then, so then Tino and Tony had a friendship with each other, and when I got married, Tino and Sal came to my wedding and, as guests in Sydney. And yeah, so I just briefly from there, I after a few years I went and lived in America, taught karate in America. I got sidetracked actually into other business ventures. Did some karate, to be honest, lightly on the side, not heavily, but just kept up some degree of training. So Tino and I lost a bit of contact. I think we had a phone call here and there. I dropped in on the house, and I met Kate actually in the very early days of her music career, and I remember talking to her in the lounge in Tino's house. But we had a bit of loose contact, and then when I started Gokhan Ryu, G-Car Karate, or Bob's Karate School, it was originally called, in '84, Tino and I sort of had some contact again and re-met each other and have crossed paths a little bit over the years. But just in recent times we've sort of had a bit more closer contact and at an older age.
And Hanshi, yourself and Hanshi Sal, Ebenezer, used to visit Gosford and Sydney a fair bit.
Yes.
Let us know a little bit more about that.
Well, it was an interesting thing because I mean, like, we always, whenever we traveled and done things together, that was how it was. And it was interesting enough that having to go to Sydney, where we'd be looked upon also by, Kancho here, taking us around with his little mini moke as a policeman as well, even while on duty, I mean, not the place. But we did our round with the dojos and with that particular Budokan dojo, which, Kancho got involved in. And all of the people there that we'd already also knew from the Gojukai that had relocated themselves with Sensei Tony Chu then. They kept a rather, close friendship amongst ourselves. And in view of, our exchange, etc., did pay visits to us in Melbourne as well, which was really great. Kancho, I think it was Kancho and I did demonstration together at the time as well that really turned it on. Brought about some very, very good old memories.
Yeah.
That was the Monash University event, and I think people never forget that. Yeah. So these are the things that, memory-wise, our recalls of how we've shared a lot of time together.
I probably went to Hanshi's house and trained there for maybe a week at a time. I'd probably visit could be three times a year. And there were phone. Almost like counselling sessions, but not really, just friendship. I'd talk with and get motivation from Hanshi, from Tino. I'd say maybe as many as 5 times a week, and we'd talk for a long time. I don't know what we talk about. We talk for, it seemed like an hour, a couple of hours.